You're listening to the Hawgs Sports Network Daily Podcast. Now, here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hey, happy Wednesday to you. We've got Anthony Kristensen joining us from San Francisco this morning to talk Razorback basketball against Texas Tech tomorrow at the Sweet 16. Christina Long will be in studio a little bit later as well. We'll talk about the Razorbacks baseball loss to Missouri State last night at Baum-Walker Stadium, and we'll end the show with a conversation with Scott Tabor at the Hawgs Illustrated Sports Club. But we go now to Anthony. He's in San Francisco this morning, a little bit earlier there for him than it is for us. Anthony, I know you weren't there yesterday, or you got in late last night, so you weren't at the practice yesterday when the Razorbacks practiced over at San Francisco. But the big news was that, and the videos confirmed, that Adou Thiero is going to be available for the Razorbacks. John Calipari said yesterday on the Pat McAfee show that, you're looking at probably 12 to 15 minutes out of Adou Thiero for this game. But 12 to 15 minutes out of your best player, assuming he can play at a level that's anywhere comparable to what he was playing during the regular season, that's just another shot in the arm for this basketball team.
Yeah, absolutely. And 12 to 15 minutes, and John Calipari talk could be 30 to 40 minutes. Yeah. So there's that. But yeah, no, it obviously Adou Thiero gives them another option. I wouldn't imagine he would start by any means, but obviously he adds a ninth man to that rotation, which is obviously huge. A lot of times in the NCAA tournament and postseason play, you don't really see your rotation expand. You kind of see it contract. So for Arkansas to be getting more bodies on the floor, that's obviously going to be a plus when they're players to the level of Adou Thiero and Boogie Fland. So getting those guys back is huge. Obviously, when you're playing against a team like Texas Tech that is as athletic, as big, as mobile as Texas Tech is, having a guy like Adou Thiero is big. So there is that. But yeah, I'm not sure how much he's going to play, just because you look back throughout the whole season, John Calipari's like, can you give us 5? We get it. We got him for 10, or whatever he likes to say. So it's a big boost for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned this in Calipari talk. It may be longer than 12 to 15 minutes. With Boogie, what was it? They thought that, or Calipari said 10 to 15 minutes, and he ends up playing 24 in the first round game against Kansas. So it's all a feel, I feel like, whenever they get into the game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's just the way it goes, and especially how are they performing? How are they contributing to the team? Like Boogie Fland, I know he didn't shoot the ball as well as he can in those first 2 games, but he's still making big defensive plays. You look back to the big steal and layup he got against Kansas, or the big steal that he got late against St. John's as well. So he was still affecting the game, still impacting how things were going. So that's why you keep him on the floor. And if Adou Thiero is doing similar things, on both ends of the floor, I think people forget about just how good of a defender Adou Thiero is. So on both ends of the floor, I think that's kind of the big contributing factors that will go into how long somebody's on the floor.
So, tell us about Texas Tech. I know you vote in the AP poll, so you're paying attention to everything. My focus, I think, this year has been more narrowed down to conference play. And so Tech is a team that, I see them in the rankings, and I see that they've got a good record. They're a 3 seed in the tournament. I don't know a whole lot about them, just because they're kind of outside of my wheelhouse, so to speak. I do know about Grant McCaslin. He was at North Texas. We actually had him on our podcast several years ago before North Texas came up here for an exhibition game in October. Had some success there at North Texas, obviously, to the point that he was able to land this Texas Tech job. Tell us about what they want to do offensively, defensively, who the players are to watch, and just how good is this basketball team?
Very good. So, you're looking at the most efficient offense in the Big 12, which, you look at the teams in that conference and you realize just how good that is. They're the fifth most efficient offense in the country. They don't play at a pace that's going to blow you away. They're not the fastest team in the world, but they're comfortable in late shot clock situations. They're comfortable, they're also comfortable playing fast. By no means am I saying they're not, but they're comfortable late in the shot clock. They can do a lot of things. Offensively, they're a good 3-point shooting team. They're good at getting the ball inside. JT Toppin was, I believe he was a second team All-American. I had him on my All-American ballot as well. He's fantastic. I mean, just a pure athlete, great at driving the ball inside, good with the ball in his hands, good passer. Mm-hmm. Not somebody you're gonna necessarily think is a 3-point threat, but he's serviceable enough that he's worth keeping an eye on there. Shoots about 31% from the 3-point line over the course of the season, and they run similar to Arkansas. They do run a shorter rotation. Darian Williams is kind of the second in command. Kevin Overton is the first guy off the bench for them. He's a guy with NCAA tournament experience from last season with Drake. So there's a lot of different weapons on this team, and defensively they don't necessarily block a ton of shots, but they can. And they're not the highest turnover team, but they break you down. They force you into bad shots, get you late in the shot clock, and stuff like that. So that's the overview on the Red Raiders.
Real good 3-point shooting team. Grant McCaslin talked about that yesterday on the Jim Rome show. We've got a clip to play here from that. It's interesting how I feel like a lot of these national shows, they don't pay attention a whole lot to college basketball until March, and then the coaches are all over them. I mean, look at John Calipari and the kind of the media rounds that he's made here in the last week. It seems like every major show he's been on there. Grant McCaslin was on Jim Rome's show yesterday, and Jim Rome asked him about Arkansas' start and the injuries they've had and just the coaching job that Calipari's done to get the Razorbacks in this position to play the Red Raiders in the Sweet 16.
It takes such a unique group to handle the losses that they started, but the injuries that they dealt with, and not just injuries to anybody, but to their best players. And I'll tell you, they're playing in such a way with such energy, and their size and their athleticism just jumps off the page immediately. And I love just considering they have young talent that's playing, but they also have had such different lineups, and they've got to a point where they've won, and now they're getting to a point where they're adding guys back that weren't playing earlier, and they're still winning. Man, it just shows you that he's got Coach Cal always does this well, but he's got his finger on the pulse of his team, and he's getting them to play together at the most important time of the year, and he's not discouraged by any kind of bad play, disappointment. It just looks like they're as resilient a group as there is in the country right now, and I have so much respect for how they're competing.
Nice little office setup he's got there too. I always like seeing the coaches in their offices and how those look. We bring Anthony back in here now. What do you think about this coaching matchup tomorrow night?
It's an interesting one because it's kind of the old guard versus the new up and comers, right? I mean, Grant McCaslin, he's been in the game for a while, but he's really kind of risen up the ranks fast. He had North Texas really humming, had that 1 year at Arkansas State that was really good as well. I believe he won the NIT with North Texas, if I'm remembering correctly, yes, as well, which is a great accomplishment, especially when they were in Conference USA and didn't have necessarily the same funding they've got now. So he's a great coach. Somebody who's one of the top up and coming coaches in the country, if you ask me. So he's done a fantastic job there. And then you've got John Calipari, who's in the Hall of Fame and has won a national title, been to all these Final Fours and Elite Eights and Sweet 16s, and there's, like I said, the old guard versus the new guard, and I don't necessarily think there's any huge contrasting styles or anything. I think Texas Tech obviously shoots the three more and converts at a higher rate, which is going to be something that's going to be interesting to see how Arkansas is able to game plan around that. How much is Arkansas going to be able to take away Texas Tech's 3-point shooting? That'll be big, just because I don't think Arkansas is in recent games in the NCAA tournament, especially, Arkansas has not played against a team that shoots the three as well as Texas Tech. So that'll be interesting to see. But I think the big thing with Texas Tech that a lot of people won't know is is Jeff Linder, the associate head coach there, was the head coach at Wyoming for a long time, got Wyoming to the NCAA tournament and into the AP top 25 at one point. He's obviously a high-level coach, kind of runs their offense there at Texas Tech now, and obviously Grant McCasland is, he's the guy in charge. He's got veto power and everything like that, but it's almost like Texas Tech has two head coaches on staff, which is an interesting dynamic, and it's obviously worked out really well for Texas Tech. So it's a fun coaching matchup. Obviously, you've got two great coaches in charge of their programs and two coaches that have their teams playing at really high levels. So it should be a fun game. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be drinking a lot of coffee going into it, but it'll be fun.
Always feels like you need a coach with head coaching experience on the staff. Not saying you can't win without it, but it seems like a lot of the really good teams have that element on their coaching staff. McCasland, by the way, yes, he won an NIT. He also won a CBI at North Texas, so a couple of postseason championships for him there in Denton. I'll tell you, you can get the latest breaking news on all Razorback sports at wholehogsports.com. Most in-depth source for all Arkansas sports, analysis, latest in recruiting, unique stories on all your favorite teams. Subscribe today at wholehogsports.com. Anthony, what's the schedule of events today there in San Francisco?
Well, we're going to be heading over to practice. Let me pull it up just to make sure I don't mess anything up. But we'll have practice. We'll have a press conference. I believe I'm probably not going to be there for Kevin Willard's press conference or anything. But they go first. Arkansas is third in line for press conferences, right around 1:50-ish, 2 o'clock Pacific time. So 4 o'clock over there. Time zones mess with my head, and I'll never be able to explain why. But yeah, Arkansas will have an open practice as well, just right around that 1:50 to 3:30 time frame, and then after that, obviously there will be the press conference with John Calipari, and then after that there will be some player availability as well. So a lot of stuff to get to, a lot of stuff to enjoy. Right after Arkansas does that stuff, it's going to be Texas Tech's turn. So get the opportunity to hear from Grant McCasland, and I'm sure JT Toppin and maybe Darian Williams as well. But that's the basic overview of the schedule of the day.
Not lost on me, and I'm not saying this is the reason they did it, but Arkansas practiced at San Francisco yesterday. San Francisco is where Eddie Sutton ended his coaching career. John Calipari and Eddie Sutton, the first coaches to take 4 different programs to the Sweet 16. Of course, they both took Arkansas. They both took Kentucky. Just kind of a neat tie-in there in San Francisco this week. Anthony, enjoy yourself, and I'm sure we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, appreciate it. We want to tell you you can find our podcast on Apple. Just search Whole Hog Sports. Or we've got a video version on YouTube. Search Whole Hog Sports there as well. We post it each day to our social media accounts on Twitter and Facebook. When we come back, Christina Long will be here in studio. We'll talk about whether or not Arkansas basketball is a Cinderella story. Also, Arkansas baseball last night against Missouri State, losing 14-13 in 10 innings. But first, a word from our sponsors.
At Kindle King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kindle King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design, with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kindle King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
Hey, welcome back. I want to tell you about our friends at Bentonville Glass. They've been serving their community since 1971, committed, professional, and versatile. If you're looking for a quality leader in Northwest Arkansas or looking for skilled craftsmanship, look no further than Bentonville Glass for all your glass market needs with the highest quality products. You can come by and see them now at 507 South Main in Bentonville or online at bentonvilleglass.com. Christina Long is here in studio with me now. We can talk Razorback basketball here for just a second. We'll also talk about the baseball game that happened last night. I saw a poll question yesterday, and we played a soundbite yesterday from Dan Patrick's show. But I saw a poll question that said, if you're Arkansas, would you rather win an SEC football championship or a national championship in basketball? Now, keep in mind, anybody can answer this. I mean, anybody who has a Twitter account, which we know that's the most, intellectually sound people in the world. But, anybody can answer this. Like 67% of the responses said an SEC title in football.
Really?
Yeah. Now, I mean, that's not necessarily an accurate representation of what Arkansas people think. But I wonder, are there more than 50% out there who would say that they'd rather win an SEC football championship than a basketball national championship? And if so, why?
It's so funny because we're starting to get to the point where in football, coaches don't even want to play in the championship game. It doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah.
It's just the question itself is so funny to me because, so the question that was posed was pointed to Arkansas fans, right? Mm-hmm. But then obviously not just Arkansas fans answered. I think a lot of people, outside of Arkansas, nationally, don't realize the level of basketball fandom that is here. I don't think people understand the dedication to basketball and the basketball history here. People might know about the national championship and some of Nolan Richardson's teams, but I don't think they realize how when there is a good basketball team to root for, people will be all in on it, and how passionate people here are about basketball and how it isn't really just a football school the way that some football schools are football schools, And so I think maybe that's where it comes from, but it's such a ridiculous question to me. Why would you not take a national title in almost any sport? It's crazy. So but I think people don't understand the basketball passion that there is in the fan base.
And you don't get John Calipari here without that.
Exactly.
I've always said with Arkansas, I mean, they're not a blue blood. If you're looking at tiers, you've got the blue bloods,
Sure.
the North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, whatever. Then you got kind of this in-between tier. It's a lot of Big East teams where basketball's a bigger deal there. They might have football, Villanova's got football.
Do they really?
But they're an FCS team.
Okay.
And so, basketball is the big deal there. Basketball is a big deal at a place like Georgetown or Xavier or, a school like that. And then you've got Arkansas. And I'd put Arkansas there with, there's a lot of teams that are in this, tier where basketball's been really good in the past, where you've got a big following. I'd put Maryland in this tier too, to kind of give an example of another team that's in this region. But, it's not quite blue blood status, but it's certainly not an afterthought. I don't know. I think you're right. A lot of people probably nationally. I think Calipari coming to Arkansas probably shone a light a little bit on, they really care
They
there.
can be
And I
serious
don't
about
know
it.
that I realize that because I may not be old enough to remember Eddie Sutton, Nolan Richardson.
Right, exactly. I think that's a really good point. I think that's one of the things about the Calipari hire that stood out so much and why people were so surprised, because people were going, well, why would he go coach there? And it's because there is history, and by hiring him and by getting the money they got to hire him, they showed that they are committed to being serious about basketball. And I think that's something that, separates them from some other, even SEC teams or things like that. Historically SEC teams, now we've seen obviously this year with the level that the SEC has risen to, that it's a little bit different. But I think people maybe don't realize. So obviously a question like that is kind of meant to sort of see how much do people in Arkansas really care about basketball. And it's actually a lot.
Okay, so here is another question. I keep hearing Arkansas referred to as Cinderella, okay? And here's why. Arkansas is a 10 seed in the tournament. Here's the rest of the seeds left. You got a 2 Alabama, a 6 BYU, a 1 Florida, a 4 Maryland, a 1 Duke, a 4 Arizona, a 3 Texas Tech. On the games Friday, you got a 2-6 matchup between Michigan State, Ole Miss, a 2-3 between Tennessee, Kentucky. I just realized right now they're playing each other. That's kind of cool.
That's crazy, yeah.
1-5 between Auburn and Michigan, and 1-4 between Houston and Purdue. Much of the tournament, maybe not in the first round, but in terms of who's made the Sweet 16, is just chalk.
Well, even the first round, there was not a lot of significant upset games there. I mean, McNeese over Clemson was maybe the biggest one, and a lot of people saw that one coming or thought it was possible to begin with.
I'm counting here. You got 4 teams outside of the top 4 seeds that are left. So 12 of the 16 top 4
and Arkansas is
seeds
the lowest,
advanced.
aren't they?
Oh, I mean, by far, at 10. And besides them, it's a couple of 6 seeds in BYU and Ole Miss. And I would even argue that Ole Miss was probably underseeded a little bit. But I can't get behind this notion that Arkansas is a Cinderella team. Cinderella didn't have a billionaire bankroller.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And,
wow. Is Tyson the fairy godmother of the Arkansas Cinderella story?
Possibly so. John Calipari's luxury SUV wasn't a pumpkin at one point. Even though I think Arkansas really is embracing this underdog mentality, and there is an element of surprise to the Razorbacks getting to this point in the tournament, I just can't get behind calling them Cinderella.
Yeah.
Cinderella teams don't have multiple NBA draft picks on their team. They don't have a Hall of Fame coach. They don't have all of these things. I just can't get behind that.
Yeah, I agree with that because I think it's the reason that's coming up is because Arkansas is the closest team left to a Cinderella.
It's almost like everybody like you have to have a Cinderella.
Yes.
And some years you don't.
Exactly. I mean, it's more fun when you do, I think, but I also don't think it's any fun to, take a team like Arkansas that has, the resources that they do and the talent that they do and try to force them into that box when they don't fit it,
Mm-hmm.
So I think I think you're right that it's more of an underdog thing than a Cinderella thing. And, I'll be interested. I think Arkansas is in a fascinating position because of that underdog status and because of that, Cinderella-ish thing that people are sort of giving to them, that they might be a team that, casual fans start to root for, down the stretch of this tournament, certainly tomorrow night. And it's funny because, you would look at that. Everybody likes to root for an underdog. Everybody likes to root for a higher seed or a lower seed, in the tournament. But I think when you add in the Calipari factor and how much a lot of college basketball fans outside of the teams he has coached hate Calipari, and so I think it's kind of going to be a funny thing to see how people respond to Arkansas and if people kind of want to root for them for the underdog status and whether their disdain for Calipari gets in the way. But it's funny because I feel like Arkansas is not often a team or not always a team that the casual fan kind of embraces in things like this.
All the teams that are left are power conference teams. You notice
Crazy.
this?
Mm-hmm.
And, if there were no Big East teams, by the way, which I think is a little surprise.
Yeah. I wonder when the last time that happened was.
I don't know. But, I mean, even if Big East was involved, I would consider Big East basketball to be a power conference. But this is the breakdown. SEC's got 7 teams left. Big 12's got 4. Big 10's got 4. ACC's got 1. I think the fear is moving forward that in the revenue share era, this is what the tournament's going to look like. I mean, you're not going to have those Florida Gulf Coasts and those ORUs from a few years ago or whoever get to that second weekend because the best teams or the biggest programs are going to be able to buy the best players. And I think it might be harder for teams to make those type of runs.
Yeah, it was interesting this morning. I haven't gotten a chance to read the story yet, but I bookmarked it. I think it was Ross Dellinger posted a story about this very topic and about the Big East and some of those teams and how revenue share is going to change things for them in the tournament, and said, he had quoted somebody, I'm assuming anonymously. Like I said, I haven't gotten to read the full story yet, but somebody that was saying, I think it was a Big East official or a coach that said, are we going to have to start paying? Are we going to go back to kind of the under the table sort of thing, because of the way that it's working with revenue share? And so that'll be something to watch as this tournament moves forward, and especially if they continue to expand it and, all the stuff that they're talking about with that.
You're talking about the Big East teams. I wonder in the revenue share era if a team like a Villanova is actually going to be best positioned to win because they don't have to worry about the football, the big time football component to it. To where the worst team in the SEC saying, hey, we got to have $15 million so we don't finish 16th so we can be 14th this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, if you're a basketball school, so to speak, you can say, hey, we're going to put all of our resources into this. It reminds me of in the scholarship era, and this is very obscure, I know, but in track and field, there are like 3 programs, maybe 4, who try to be really good indoors, outdoors, and in cross country. Arkansas is one of them. Oregon's one of them. They're Wisconsin, I guess I would say, is kind of. But there are other programs who just stack up in individual events. A Villanova, for example, they're a great distance school because what they do is they allocate all or most of their scholarships to distance runners. So if you're an elite distance runner, you can go there and basically go there for full scholarship, whereas you might, and this is before, this is during the equivalency era, but you could go there for a full scholarship, whereas if you go to Arkansas or Oregon, you might be going there for 35%. And I think maybe you see that a little bit. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Is in the rev share era, if you don't have to deal with football, you can kind of pick. It's like, hey, we're going to be really good here. We're going to be really good in these two sports. It's just interesting how this may work out.
There's so much that's going to change that I feel like there's things like that we don't even realize yet. And there's going to be so much that plays out over the next few years in this new era where we kind of see, there's going to be so many consequences that I feel like we can't even foresee now, that it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
Northern Arizona, another distance factory.
Oh yeah, I did know that. Because is that where somebody came from there? No, I'm thinking of a football player. There was a football player that came from Northern Arizona, not a distance runner. I was about to say Ruben Reyna. Nope, definitely not. Not even close.
No, he's a Razorback legacy from right up the road. But I mean, you got these distance factories, and that's what they do. So maybe you have these basketball factories moving forward. Arkansas baseball loses to Missouri State last night, 14-13. Brutal loss. In some ways, and 13-8, they're up in the ninth inning, and they can't close out the game. That's where it's brutal. On the other hand, you have to look at this like they didn't shoot all their bullets last night, and you can't. I think people who don't follow baseball on a routine basis, who want to treat it like you treat football and basketball, where you say you go all in to win every game. That's not how it is in baseball. You're not going to win every game in baseball. And you really have to kind of pick your poison. And I think that's what they had to do last night. They could have gotten their closer hot in the ninth inning and brought him in, but then maybe he's not ready on Friday night in a close situation against Vanderbilt. So it was frustrating from the fact that they had some veteran players like a Will McIntyre who was not able to get it done last night. He didn't get help by the defense behind him. Nolan Souza dropped a pop-up that I think if he catches it, Arkansas wins the game. But frustrating loss for Arkansas, 14-13 to Missouri State. Missouri State, by the way, picked to win the Missouri Valley Conference. That's always a really good baseball conference. This is not a bad team. This is a very veteran team. And, I talked to Joey Hawkins a couple of days ago, Missouri State's coach. He played there. He's been an assistant coach there. And you could hear it in his voice how important playing Arkansas is to Missouri State. And then you talked to him last night after the game, and he told you, I don't know that there's a better baseball series in America than this.
Yeah, he was great to talk to post game. He's you said he was 32 years old. I mean,
32.
He's a young coach. He's a first year coach. And at the end of our interview, I only talked to him for a couple minutes, and I kind of asked him. I was like, as a young coach, a first year coach, a former player here, what does winning a game like this mean to you? And he just all he could kind of get out was a lot. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like he was being short with me or anything, but I could tell he was going to get emotional if he kept going. But so it was so clear how much that meant to him, and I thought that was special, even though the Razorback fans would obviously want to see them win. But kind of what Dave Van Horn was saying after the game was, okay, would you rather win a midweek game over Missouri State or win a series against Vanderbilt? Because at a certain point, when you get into the situation they got in, like you were saying, you have to save some guys, you have to save some bullets.
These things happen to SEC. Arkansas was able to avoid it last year because they didn't have a midweek loss. But these types of losses,
rare.
Very rare. But these types of losses happen to SEC teams all the time. Tennessee lost to East Tennessee State last week.
Who lost
very
to what,
similar
South
thing.
Alabama? Was it somebody that lost to South
Ole
Alabama?
Miss lost to South Alabama by 9 runs on a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
But Tennessee, they had not lost a game all year, and they lose to East Tennessee State in Knoxville. Very similar thing, where East Tennessee State hits a home run in the 10th inning and beats them by 1 run. These type of losses happen. If Arkansas beats Vanderbilt this weekend, nobody cares that they lost to Missouri State. If they lose to Vanderbilt this weekend, you're going to have a lot of people come out of the woodwork. Well, I told you it was coming because they lost to Missouri State. You can see this coming from a mile away. You don't play the games like that. Dave Van Horn said this about the loss last night, said it was a team loss.
Yeah, just the ball was jumping in BP, and, I told our team we're going to have to score tonight. And, we scored enough. We didn't do it on the other side of the ball, but you can't blame it all on the pitching when you don't make a couple plays in the field that cost you a few runs, 2 runs anyway, and maybe more. So it was a team loss. We didn't finish. Guys they got to do it. This is their opportunity midweek, and kind of a chance to audition for getting on the mound on the weekend, and it didn't go great.
this was not the same team that played South Carolina. You start 3 new players, gave Brent Iredell a day off. Well, they gave him the start of the game off, gave Ryder Helfrich off and Justin Thomas off. Iredell ends up coming in as a defensive replacement in the 8th inning, and then Thomas comes in as a pinch runner in the 8th inning. They both end up playing. Helfrich doesn't play at all. Zane Becker plays the entire game. Actually, a lot of their offense came from the 2 freshmen who played, Becker and Gabe Frazier. Frazier hits a grand slam. Becker's got 3 RBI, so that's 7 RBI between those 2 freshmen in the 8 and 9 holes. They played well. But, again, you're not pitching this the way you normally pitch a game. Perfect case in point, Cole Gibbler is rolling in the 7th inning, 8th inning, gives off a leadoff home run in the 7th, and then walks a batter. And then at that point, he strikes out the next 7 batters he faces. Has a couple of left-handers get hits against him in the 9th. He's at 44 pitches. So he can keep going if you want him to keep going. And he probably could have pitched himself out of that, but they want him to be available if needed for that Sunday game against Vanderbilt. So they make a change. They bring in Will McIntyre. Doesn't go well. Mentioned the defensive lapse behind him. Bring in Tate McGuire. He puts out the fire in the 9th inning, but then he gives up a leadoff home run to Nick Rodriguez in the 10th. But going back to Gibbler, I think he's a perfect example of how you pitch these Tuesday games differently than you might pitch a weekend game. Heard a lot of people being critical last night of, why would you take that pitcher out in the 9th inning? Well, it's because, again, the weekend games mean more than the midweek games, and this is what Dave Van Horn had to say about that last night.
You have to, sometimes you got to lose one to win one. That's the way I look at it. And, there's a couple of older guys or even a freshman down there that's got great stuff, can finish a game, and we didn't put him on the board today because we didn't want to throw him because he might have to throw Friday. And, sometimes that's just the way it works in this game. We play a lot of games, and you want to win them all, but sometimes you can't sacrifice winning on Tuesday to win on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday because those games are more important. We're going to a really tough place to play, a team that hasn't lost at home all year, and we need to have all of our guys available.
So again, baseball, it's a different sport. One of my friends has a saying that he likes to roll out multiple times every year. He says, baseball is like church. Many attend, few understand.
That's a very, very good slogan. Baseball's a great hangout sport. A lot of people go just for the vibe.
Can you imagine a football coach saying sometimes you got to lose one to win one?
Oh, my God. Absolutely not. I mean,
they wouldn't have a job by Monday.
No. The meltdown that would occur. Yeah.
What I was thinking of, remember Calipari against South Carolina about 4 weeks ago when it became terribly evident that they were not going to win that game. I think it was about 8-10 minutes left in the second half. He told his players, don't foul. Yeah. Let's just get out of here. Now, it's a different deal. I mean, Arkansas had a chance to win this baseball game last night.
Yeah.
But it's a similar thing that sometimes you just have to cut your losses and, realize how this game might affect your next game. And I said this at the time earlier this month that I don't know that they go to Vanderbilt and win that game if they give everything they have to try and cut a 35-point lead down to, 10.
Yeah.
In that South Carolina game. And again, it's kind of a similar deal here with baseball. I don't know that you can, and we'll see what happens with Vanderbilt this weekend. We're going to talk to their color commentator tomorrow, by the way, on our podcast when Bubba's in studio. But I don't know that you can be competitive with them if you go all in to win a Tuesday game. And that's where I think having a veteran coach is very beneficial in this, in this situation. I think a lot of coaches, and I'm sure Dave Van Horn probably could tell you, times in his career where he went all in to win a Tuesday game and then it backfired on him on the weekend. So it's, again, baseball's just one of those sports where sometimes it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But this game can really have an influence on games down the road.
Yeah, I think there's, like you said, it is a different kind of situation because of the fact that it was a blown lead and the fact that, it didn't feel like they would have needed to go all in. Like they weren't supposed to need to go all in until the very end. But I mean, to flip it on the Missouri State side, I mean, they didn't cut their losses and they did go all in, to win a game like this because it's a big deal for them,
Let's see how it works for them this weekend.
Exactly, yeah. So,
but they're a team, too, that, they're going to have to win the Missouri Valley to make the NCAA tournament.
There was way more on the line for them than there was for Arkansas, for sure.
Well, I was going to make a point. I have a hard time seeing a path for them to get into the NCAA tournament. I guess where I'm going with this is if they can get to a point where maybe they are a bubble team, this is the type of game that could help get them over the top. But as I thought more about that, I think they're going to have to win the Missouri Valley to get in.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate.
They've challenged themselves. I mean, they played a very difficult schedule.
They went to Mississippi State.
They went
right?
to Mississippi State. They played a lot of upper level baseball programs to this point. And baseball, it's one of those deals where it's all about getting hot. And they used the same lineup that they had against Bradley last weekend when they did so well up in Springfield. And they're a team that looks like they're getting on a roll a little bit. Arkansas goes there on April 29th. And it would not surprise me, again, if Missouri State can win its conference, that may be a regional matchup you see down here in a couple of months. Arkansas hosting. We know that Missouri State and Arkansas, they've been paired together in the postseason a number of times.
Could
Maybe
be fun.
you see it.
Yeah.
Maybe they're a 3 seed that comes into Fayetteville. We'll see. All right, when we come back, Scott Tabor, Razorback baseball great, at the Hawgs Illustrated Sports Club. We'll have a Q&A with him, but first a word from our sponsors.
At Kindle King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kindle King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design, with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kindle King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
Scott, I was talking last week with Ralph Krause for a story about the night that they got lights at George Cole Field, and I talked to Coach DeBryan about it too. And I was talking to Ralph, and one of the things that we talked about were there are all these stepping stone moments that got the program to where it is right now, and you were part of a lot of those. I wonder when you see, what the program has turned into now, just for you and your teammates, how much pride is there knowing that you were part of, laying the groundwork for that?
There's a lot of pride involved in that because we got to live the part before and then watch to where it's gone. It's just, like I said, it's stepped in. And getting lights was a huge deal because we played double headers. We always played double headers. Spring break for us was 6 or 7 double headers in a row, which is why I think we started off 22-2 that year because you play 14 games in 7 days. But it is very, very prideful to see. It's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to see it on TV. And I mean, I played up the AAA level in pro ball, and you didn't have that stuff. It's just wonderful.
Did you watch the game last night?
I did.
It was a tough loss. I wonder, for you guys who have lived this, I've always felt like, what sets a good program apart is the ability to just move on and not overreact to a game.
Right.
What do you think Dave is telling them today?
Dave's telling them it's just a game. It's one loss. And he mentioned it, you don't want one loss to turn into 3 losses, but one loss can turn into 3 or 4 wins because learning how to lose, baseball is a game of failure all the way across, whether it's your at-bats or whether it's as a pitcher, you have a good outing or, every pitch is a success or failure, a strike or a ball. The success of a team, of a season, does not hinge on one game. So sometimes losing one will kind of put everything back in perspective. Now, they know they can hit the ball. Pitchers just kind of stubbed their toe last night. And every one of the hits were on mistakes. I watched them and I go, You watch the replay and it's right belt tie right down the middle of the plate. Pitchers can't make mistakes, so they have to kind of refocus what they're doing.
You mentioned the 82 team. I asked Dave last week. I said, "This is your best start since '82. Do you see any similarities?" And he just kind of laughed and said, "No."
Yeah.
He said, "We didn't hit home runs like this."
No, we didn't. They were. You hate to say a bunch of punching Jews. Had a lot of balls. Dave was an example of it. I mean, he was a gap hitter. He was left center, right center, and I mean, but very few pitches got by him. When it was time to hit, he hit. We had a lot of guys who could hit pretty well, but no, we didn't have any big bombers like they have now. It seems like everybody can hit the ball out of the park anymore.
So I want to ask you about, because you were there, the story about recruiting Dave Van Horn, because it was at a McDonald's in Waco, Texas, I believe.
Yes, it was.
You guys were on your way back from
on the way down.
Oh, on the way to a series.
And I don't remember who we were going to play. We were in a bus, so it might have been the conference tournament because usually we traveled in vans. Picture 13 guys squeezed into a van. It was horrible. But we were on a bus, and we pulled over to McDonald's, and whenever there's a McDonald's, there's a Burger King. we look in, and the coaches, they didn't say, here's what we're going to do. They say, we got to go see this guy. They go in, and you see them sitting there at the window, and they're on one side, and Dave's on the other, and they're talking. And, of course, being a bunch of smart aleck kids, we're rolling. You better sign. There's a guy over Burger King. He swears he's coming, so if you don't sign, we're going to get him. And, of course, they can't hear us, but we all had a lot of fun at his expense. Mm-hmm. And I tell him that. They said, this guy's important. He's really got to get him. We're looking and going, him? Second baseman, oh, never mind. Yeah, you're right. I get it. But he was, it's a big recruit.
Did you have multiple, like were there multiple instances where you stopped on a bus and met with somebody, or was that the only time you
That's the only one I can remember. If we had recruited anybody else on the road, it would have been at Luby's Cafeteria in Sherman, because we stopped at Luby's every time we took a trip down.
So, I mean, obviously you remember Van Horn because of what he's done. I've heard stories about him as a player. I think Norm told me this story, that he was in stretch lines one time, and you guys had a big first baseman, and he was late to practice. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think Dave gets out of the stretch line, and he's probably 5'10", 5'9", something like that, and he gets in this guy's face, probably 6'3", and he says, "Practice starts at this time. We expect you to be here on time." I mean,
yep. And that's the way he was. He's always been that way, and he was a leader of the team. Even he only played 1 year here. Mm-hmm. He came out of a JUCO. Which back then that was huge. I didn't know how important it was, because we didn't, like I said, we didn't follow college baseball when I was growing up, and there wasn't much to follow. And so most of your stuff came out of JUCO. Most of our players for the '79 team came from JUCOs out of Oklahoma and Kansas. So yeah, he's always been a leader.
When you get together with your old teammates like Kevin McReynolds, Johnny Ray, and you guys talk about how far the program has come versus what you played in, what are those conversations like?
Where was NIL? It would have been nice. I don't know if it would have been as rewarding as it was we played because we love baseball. Mm-hmm. It wasn't skipping off. So what would it have been like if Texas would have said, "Hey, McReynolds, I want to come. We're going to give you $1.5 million and come play for us your junior year." I can't even imagine doing that. Mm-hmm. I couldn't imagine playing for 3 or 4 different college teams during a career, because Arkansas is my college, and that's who your allegiance is to. I just can't even imagine that. Now, nobody was wagging a bunch of money in front of my face, but we talk about the way things were, and we all have the same story. I mean, that '79 year especially was just a magical run where it was fun. I mean, mm-hmm. It was fun all the way through.
I want to ask you a story I've heard about. You're playing Texas A&M in College Station. You stay, I guess, overnight. You go to dinner with these guys or a party or something, and they inform you that you're tipping your pitches. Mm-hmm. And then you see them again like 2 weeks later in the Southwest Conference Tournament, and you had some fun with the Aggies.
Funnest game I've ever pitched. And again, I'm an 18-year-old, no brains, no headaches kind of guy, but I wasn't totally stupid. Ron Reynolds and I are sitting. We're in the middle of a big field. It was a big frat party, and all their team was there, and a bunch of us were there. I'm sure we got back before curfew. Pretty sure we did. We didn't, because we flew back. I think anyway, we were still there that night, and usually we just left right after the game and drove all night. For some reason, we didn't. But I'll never forget standing there with Ron Reynolds, and these two guys were talking, and they're drinking a bunch of beer, and we all had our just one. And they go, that pitch you throw, we could see it coming. We knew exactly when you were going to throw it. And Ron, being a smart ass, he goes, but you still couldn't hit it. He goes, but we know it's coming. He goes, we go, how did you know it's coming? Y'all kids got up our signs? He goes, no, you do. When you come from back here, and I held the ball behind my back at the time, and I flipped it. And as it's coming to the glove, he said that we could see your fingers come up from the dugout. And we just go, oh, wow. And we both kind of looked at each other at the same time and went, oh. 2 weeks later in the conference tournament, they threw me. I don't remember. I think they threw me in front of Kruger because I was facing A&M. And I think we won the game before. I pitched 6-2 or something, so they wanted to throw me again. And it was just so fun. I mean, you're talking about Aggies being Aggies. You could see the confusion on their faces as they're walking back to home plate, and they're going. You could see them talking to each other, going, and we're just laughing. It's a 2-0 pitch, or a 1-2 pitch, and they know it's coming. Here comes the hammer, and I throw a fastball right down the line, and they just stared at it and no clue.
Because you're manipulating what you were doing with your.
I would
your
drop
hand.
my finger and throw a fastball, or I would sometimes I would put it up and throw that, and then sometimes I wouldn't. And so it was a lot of fun. Could have thrown 100 innings that day. It was so fun.
Sometimes the Aggie jokes write
Aggie,
themselves.
yeah.
Let me ask you about this year's team. I mean, what do you think when you see this year's team, and how good do you think they are? How are they going to fare as the competition gets better here?
Well, it's a long season. Baseball is a game of grind. It's a game of streaks, and it's a game of perseverance. Every game's going to be a little bit different. Sometimes your hitters are hitting, sometimes your pitchers are pitching, and sometimes it doesn't matter because the other team is doing the same thing and they're just doing it better. Mm-hmm. I think if you watch, you got guys on the riding the pine that are good, really, really good. They wouldn't be here if they weren't really, really good. For one thing, every player is a high quality, high caliber player. And so when they take somebody out, pinch hit for somebody, there's not going to be any drop off. In fact, it may be an improvement. Some of the guys that you're waiting to come around, I don't think, and I hope they don't wait too long during the season for a guy to come around that has the potential to be great. And the pitching staff, just everybody's a great arm. Of course, again, you still, because you got a great arm and you throw 95 miles an hour, it has to be a well-located 95 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. Every team in the SEC, and really across the board, they can turn a 95-round fastball around if it's in the wrong spot. And so you can't depend on velocity to win everything. You still have to pitch. So I can see them going deep,
Two of the pitchers that a lot of people talked about are Gackle and Fouch. They were expected to do a lot of great things this year. They're scuffling a little bit. What do you see when you watch them, and what do you think is the key to them turning things around?
The same thing that's when a pitcher's struggling. It's the same thing whether they're highly, they're All-American candidates or they're the 10th guy in the rotation. If they're not, if they're very predictable, which is what got Gackle in trouble. His first I don't remember what series it was, but he got lit up pretty well. And, it's puzzling because the guy last year was just nails. Nobody had any scouting reports on him. Nobody had any video on him. This year they do. It's the same thing back when I was, but everything was on paper. They know your tendencies, so you have to learn to pitch backwards in a count, but have the confidence to be able to throw a change-up when it should be a fastball or a curveball when looking for a fastball or a fastball. If they're looking for off-speed pitches a lot, and you get that reputation, you can throw a lot of fastballs. And you get the same result.
As far as what they're doing offensively, I think last night was like their 6th or 7th consecutive game where they've got multiple hits. They're scoring double digit hits. They're scoring double-digit runs. Feels like just about every game right now. How would you like to throw to that lineup, and what makes them so difficult to navigate?
They show good. They show confidence in what they do. You don't see any hitters going up. Well, I take that back. Some of the guys are struggling. Souza right now is struggling. And if you watch his body language, and I used to watch, I wasn't a great pitcher, but I really paid attention to what the hitter would look like, believe it or not. Some of them, you can watch their feet. If they're turning, they're going to try to hit the ball to left field if they're a left-handed hitter because they can't pull what I'm throwing. Well, I'm going to pitch them inside. Or you watch where their hands are, watch what they're doing, little things that you look for. Mm-hmm. Certain people's body language. But they're confident, and they go up expecting to hit the ball. And even the greatest, the 3 out of 10, they're expected to hit it, but they're 3 out of 10. So these guys are expecting to hit the ball, and I think the results are showing. And the biggest difference I see between this year and last year, it seems like I don't know about launch angle, and they get so deep in the weeds on some of this stuff, it drives me crazy. But their swing plane looks more like what I was accustomed to, keeping a level plane through the strike zone, and letting the backspin carry the ball out of the park. You're hitting 110 miles off the bat. And with backspin, it's going to go out of the park. Doesn't matter if it's a line drive or not. So it's not like they're swinging up and launch angle and swinging for the fences. And you can see they're hitting a lot more doubles this year than they ever have. And they're smoking them. Right field, left field, it doesn't matter, opposite field. And so I think up and down the lineup, you're seeing that consistency more than anything else. Hopefully the pitching staff, and it's hard to do. Pitching's not easy. Hopefully the pitching staff will rein it in to where all of a sudden they hit a streak where their confidence level goes up and they're hitting corners and changing speeds and pitching backwards in the count and doing the things they need to do to get people out. You don't have to strike everybody out. 2-pitch ground ball is wonderful.
Vahiva Loy looks like an All-American to me this year. In Alabama, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and maybe his biggest challenge to be All-American is the Alabama shortstop, who's going to be his biggest challenge to be All-SEC this year. But like last night, he snagged a 114-mile-an-hour ground ball and made it look like it was nothing. We saw the play that he had last week where he leaps and throws behind the guy at second. Great double play. What do you think when you watch a player like him? Because there just haven't been a whole lot like that.
Well, think about the shortstops that you've had come through. Shortstop's generally going to be your best athlete on the field. I mean, just all-around versatile athlete. He's got to have a great arm. He's got to have great range. Flexibility's got to be crazy. His instincts have to be off the charts. And when you get here, and he was good last year, he wasn't great, you're going to improve. Especially if you're surrounded with really, really, really good talent, which they are. Everybody they brought in this year seems like it's just off the charts, which I think that's one of the great things of the portal. And he's going to get better, and he can afford to try things that maybe he wouldn't try before, or try a certain play that he wouldn't have tried before, because now he has the confidence he's going to make it. And once you get in a rhythm and fielding a 114-mile-an-hour ground ball, that's just a really hard-hit grunder, as Coach DeBryan used to call. And you should catch that. You're expected to catch it. If you say, "Oh, wow, great play, he caught a ground ball," well, at this level, you should be expected to catch those balls. And so when your expectations are so high, some people look at him as a great play, and if you're expected to catch it, you're going to catch it. And so he's making those plays.
All right, so they told you you're number 4 all-time in walks. Do you know who's number 1? Famous name in Razorback history.
Charlie Boyce?
Barry Lunny Jr.
Barry Lunny
Yeah,
Jr.
number one in walks.
Well, that's why you had to play football.
So he played a lot of baseball for the Razorbacks.
No,
Scott,
I know he did.
We appreciate you being here.
You bet, certainly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.